Ladies and gentlemen, mystery seekers, musers, conspiracy theorists, interdimensional philosophers, seekers of truth, and last, but certainly not least, all of you with confirmation bias, we'd like to welcome you to Musings on Mysteries in the Mythical Matrix, as we sit tucked away in the ancient flood-battered Central Pangea mountain range. We are a podcast dedicated to exploring the fringe with logic, and where we also theorize the fourth dimension exists and is the spiritual.
Here, we're dedicated to putting science, logic, and the Socratic method to their limits as we discuss the mysteries and mythologies of the world.
So I'm going to say the only trigger warning for this episode, it's a logical conversation. So if applying the Socratic method on fringe topics is disturbing to you, you might want to turn off the podcast now. I will also give a warning. We are going to be talking about spooky things in preparation of All Hallows Eve. So people like spooky things this time of year. So
Typically.
yes.
All right. So today's fish fact. I'm not going to jump right into the squid facts yet. I still have a ton in back catalog.
I know you said about that on the UFO episode, and then I don't think you did one last episode, did you, for the Mothman Festival?
No, because that was the new hammerhead species discovered.
Oh,
that
right. You
takes
out
precedence.
you
over
out
squid.
nerded yourself. Okay,
Yes.
I got it. I got it.
But I still have a ton of squid. Anyway, we're just gonna say so 85% of the deep sea life is bioluminescent.
That's interesting. I suppose that makes sense, though, because being that far under, you kind of need to produce your own light, and light's one of the large ways that many life forms use to navigate the complexities that are thrown your way in this journey that we call life. It finds a way.
Okay.
I don't know. I might have whispered that too quiet.
Maybe.
If you can't hear it, I'm sorry. I'm not going to fix it. I generally say follow-ups for the end. I'm going to do one very brief one. We haven't done follow-ups in since the
A while.
musings, because we just save all the follow-ups for the musings, and we've got a big musings episode in the works. But I will say the podcast audio has been kind of sucky the last two episodes, and I apologize for that to our dedicated listeners. I am trying really hard to get all this to work and to smooth everything out in the audio, but I'm not a professional at this yet. Yet being the key word, because I am determined to master it. That being said, this one should be very crisp. I worked really hard to smooth out some technical difficulties, so this should be the next level of our bioluminescent audio conversation, quantumly transcending Mothman. I'm just saying that because Trace was getting distracted and I wanted to bring him back in.
No, I was putting something away.
Okay.
I just got confused. It's what does bioluminescence have to do with audio?
Everything.
No. Documentaries put those signs in as an after effect. They don't actually make lightsaber sounds.
Pew, pew. All right. That being said, we're going to do an interesting episode today. This episode was inspired by just me having a conversation with Trace in passing, where I was like, have I ever told you about the weird things I've experienced? And you just looked at me and you were like, no.
Yeah, the only thing I've heard is the Jersey Devil.
Yeah, the Jersey Devil is definitely a good one, but that's probably the least freaky out of most of these.
Okay.
So I will preface this. Some of these are my experiences. Some of these were friends of mine that shared this with me, and I'm not going to divulge names or any context so that anyone could ever figure out who they are. I'm just going to reference them in general as being Joe Schmo. In fact, I will use fictitious names. So the names you're hearing are not the real names of the people I will mention.
Okay.
That being said, all right. First one, I was always interested in the fringe, I gotta say. I was interested probably since 5 or 6 years old. And when I was 13 years old, around there, I was talking to an acquaintance of mine that lived in the neighborhood, and he told me that little green men in tiny minutes. Sorry. little green men in tiny, minuscule UFOs. I'll believe me, this is entertaining in hindsight. Would fly up to his window, come into his room, and interact with him. This friend was borderline hillbilly too, so it was very, yeah. So I was part of the M Quad force well before M Quad was ever a thing, and I was like, you know what? I'm like, does this happen to you every night? He's like, yep, every night. I'm like, bet, fam. So I went back home that evening, and I'm like, hey, Mom and Dad, I'm gonna be out a little late tonight. So I knew where his house was. He didn't live too far from me. So I threw on like a black shirt, black pants, ninja mask get up, the whole night. Maybe not the ninja mask, but
I could totally believe you were wearing a ninja mask as well.
Yeah. I mean, 13-year-old me especially.
Yes.
So go out, and I'm like, I talked to him before. I'm like, which window's yours? And he told me, and I'm like, all right, cool. So I just go there, and I sit for a while, and I wait. I'm like, what am I going to see? So I wait for like, I don't know, maybe half an hour or so, maybe an hour. It's kind of hard to gauge because my perception of time being 27 versus 13 is so drastically different. And then I'm like getting up to leave, and I look up, and I see these really bright, flashing things that look like they're moving at like light speed flying across. And I kind of like jump and panic a little bit. And then I kind of look, and I'm like, they're still there. Like it's still like looks like it's moving really fast, but it's still there, like it's frozen. So I'm on the edge of my seat here, metaphorically speaking.
Was it like a just a streak of light?
It was just like a line.
Stationary?
It was just like a line that was stationary. And I look at it for a minute because it's dark out, and that there's like a street light. And I realize that it's just the street light hitting the power lines. So this is a little icebreaker for this, because this episode is abnormal or paranormal. And I just kind of wanted to throw that out there to be like, look, I've gone out to look for things, and I haven't found things sometimes. So
now, did you talk to this acquaintance afterwards?
I did. Thank you for bringing that up. So I asked him, I'm like, hey, this night, did anything happen? And he's like, oh yeah, they didn't visit me that night. So whether he was just full of it, because I think I had mentioned to him that I was going to go check out the area, or whether my presence scared them off, like we talked about with the quantum physics thing, how like observation affects manifestation. I don't know, but it's definitely an interesting way to start this conversation. Not all of these will be gags. Some of these will actually be real experiences of something very paranormal. But I do want to start this with the gag one, because I want to set the precedent that, like, look, I'm not going to believe every single thing that happens. But this episode was an easy prep, I got to say, because all I'm talking about is my personal experiences on things. So.
Yeah,
and I have a really good memory.
You love talking about yourself.
Well, at least for me, the wheel isn't still spinning in my brain while the hamster is dead. So, unlike the other party over here. All right. So, this is a couple years later, like a year and a half, 2 years later. I am in like a clearing in the woods hanging out with one of my friends. It was earlier in the morning. I think it was just before sunrise. And we're standing in the middle of this field kind of goofing off. We were playing like Army or Star Wars or something like that, because that was something I was, really into at that age. And all of a sudden, I'm standing there, and I've never gotten an experience like this before or since. But I get the feeling that I'm being watched from the wood line, and that what is watching me severely wanted to hurt me. Severely. Like it wanted to kill me.
Okay.
And I kind of pause, and I look over at my friend, and he's like, do you feel that too? And I'm like, oh, crap. I'm just like, dude, we got to get out of here. And so we leave. But from looking into like things like Bigfoot sightings, like that seems like something akin to that is not necessarily uncommon for a Bigfoot encounter, to feel like something severely wants to hurt you.
Now, where was this?
This was in Canada.
Okay. Canada seems to be a pretty big hotspot, I will say.
Yes.
But could it also just be like, I don't know, like Are mountain lions in Canada? I know they're around here.
So,
Kind of.
this was East Canada, so not really. There were bears.
Okay.
So I mean, but we were like, the clearing we were in was like an area that was under construction. It had been cleared, but there was no building going on, so we were allowed to be there. But it was about the size of a football field, and we were about in the middle of it. And we felt like, and there was a street on the other end of it, so we knew whatever it wasn't on the street end. We were closer to that street end, so whatever it was far away. It was easily, I'd say easily at least 100 meters away, just like to have been just sitting at the edge of the wood line inside the woods. So it wasn't like we were a threat to a mama bear and her cubs at that distance, because we weren't expressing any intent to go into the woods. Believe me, we were even before that, we were very much not interested to go into the dark woods at like pre-dawn. So I mean, like bears were a thing. I know my dad ran into a bear or two, like that he saw, like didn't like literally physically run into them, but while we were living there, he did see bears. So I don't know what it was. It could have just been an animal, could have been a wild animal. But it did, from what I've seen and heard about like Bigfoot experiences, that kind of a feeling shift is more common for like Bigfoot encounters. And I've actually stood about 10 inches away from a black bear face to face before, like a wild black bear. And I did not get that feel. He was actually scared of me.
Yeah, that's a common thing. Is like bears are more afraid of you than you are of them. But like, it depends if it might be like a grizzly bear. They're super territorial.
Right. No grizzly bears in this area.
Okay.
No grizzly bears, no mountain lions, nothing.
Nothing that's like known to be an aggressor.
Yeah. And even mountain lions are going to tend to leave you alone. Because a mountain lion to a person, their advantage is surprise. But generally speaking, if you can fight off a mountain lion through surprise, I think the general rule of thumb is you can survive because of like the weight class difference. So especially with me being like within 10 feet of another person, that's like a mountain lion wanting to attack a pack. That doesn't add up for a mountain lion either,
Yeah, and from what I hear is like people feel like they're being watched. It's more of just like an eerie, like, oh, I'm uncomfortable, not like this thing wants to kill me.
Yes, like it very much felt like maybe kill is too strong of a word, but it meant severe harm.
Yeah,
I know I said kill, but at the very least it meant severe harm, and I could.
No, you said severe harm. I'm just saying like that kind of implies like this thing probably wants to kill me.
And the thing is that like I would have just kind of chalked it up to maybe my anxiety or something had he not felt it too. At the same time. And he might have actually like mentioned it. Yeah, he mentioned it first. I'm kind of like thinking back because this was like over a decade ago. So like some of the details are a little hazy. But yeah, he's the one that brought it up first. So for me, I know it was like he literally said what I was feeling. There's no way he could have known I was feeling that specific thing at that moment. And he wasn't the type to joke around with that stuff anyway.
Yeah. I thought you just said he said like, do you feel that too?
Yeah, he did. Yeah, it was something akin to that anyway. Okay. So. I don't know what to make of that, but I will. Let's tangent here a little bit, Trace. Are you familiar with the martial art Bujinkan?
No.
It's ninjutsu. It's like the ninja martial art from Japan. So I think it's part of their like 3rd or 5th Godan belt test. It's like their like 3rd or 5th degree black belt. You have to do a test where it starts off as a wooden sword, but then it progresses to a real sword. You kneel and you face away from the tester, and the tester pulls out his sword, holds it over his head to strike you, and swings at you. And part of this test is you, looking away, have to be able to sense when he moves and move out of the way. And our one guest, so our one guest, Harrison Smith, he's done some Bujinkan. He's very familiar with this. He's communicated that like, and Harrison, if you're listening, if I get this wrong, just shoot me a text. I'll correct it one of the future episodes. But that the gist of it is that the instructor is choosing to harm the student. They are intentionally choosing in their heart and soul to kill this student, and the student has to sense that, and the student then has to roll or move out of the way. That is the test. So it's a very interesting test, and students have been like killed doing this test.
I was saying,
people have died. That's why you start off with the wooden sword at first in the test for your earlier tests, and then later on it progresses to a real
Are
sword.
there like repercussions if they kill him?
I don't think so. I don't know.
Do you have to sign a waiver?
I think this was a longer time ago, like
Okay.
100 plus years
Okay.
ago. I don't know. I haven't really looked into this a ton.
So I said like ancient Japan or yeah, like I could totally see that being a thing. But
Yes.
like today,
But it's part of their society, like in
Oh,
Japan.
okay,
So it's
okay.
yes, it exists.
Gotcha.
Bujinkan exists over here, but it's not like super common.
There's
so I'm
still,
sure there
like-
would be nuances. I don't know how all the legalities of that would play out.
I mean,
but I'm sure Harrison could answer a lot of these questions if you
Yeah.
have them, because I only participated in it for a couple classes at a very, very low introductory level. So he's got a lot more experience. And that being said, there's also there's kind of that phenomenon, if you will, of knowing that you're being watched too.
Yeah.
That's like a common human thing to know if someone's looking at you. It's like the human gaze communicates something more than just like the physical, conscious, subconscious even. It's almost like a spiritual thing. When another conscious, spiritual being is gazing at you, you feel it to some degree. And this was what I felt in the woods. It was easily times like 100 of what that would have been. Like I might occasionally feel like I'm being watched, and I'm just like, what's looking at me, you know? But
yeah,
like,
I mean, I've seen videos of stuff, but like how long till my grandmother notices me staring at her from behind? It's like a couple seconds later, she's like, huh?
yes.
Or like, I mean, heck, how many times are you walking around the street or something and like you just happen to glance up at someone and make eye contact?
Yeah, exactly.
It's like,
it was not anything like that. It was very, very clear
Yeah.
and precise. It was freaky to me. It was very freaky.
It's like primal kind of.
Yes. And this friend had also actually told me that he had had another experience as well with some kind of spiritual entity. Now, again, this is secondhand account. I'm not
Yeah.
telling my own story right now. But he had told me that he had he was playing around in his house, and then he ran into this one room, and he was grabbed by this golem-looking creature.
Ugh.
And he just screamed and
I hate
ran out of
that.
the room. And they all went in and looked, his family went in and looked, and it was nowhere to be found. So again, he wasn't, he is a friend of mine. I had a pretty good read on him. He really wasn't the type to make something like that up. And that's where I'm more inclined to believe those kind of accounts. That being said, let's put a pin in this, and we'll take a brief ad pause, and then we'll let you come back with any final thoughts you have on this story. Astral projecting into your earbuds or speaker. This is Musings on Mysteries and the Mythical Matrix, where we are thrilled to be quantumly transcending time to capture your attention, to make you feel watched, to make you feel spooky. Trace, do you have any final thoughts that you wanted to interject on that story of mine, or my friend's story?
No, but I just want to say every time you bring us back from ad break, it's just surprises me. Every time. It's like, man.
I've got to,
I mean, I like it, but it's just.
got to keep the listeners on their toes, or on their floating fringy bed sheets.
What?
Ghosts, come on.
Okay.
Come on. That was a good one. That was a good one.
Yeah.
All right. Oh, man. So, second story. This is, again, I'm going to leave this very anonymous because I don't want to offend anyone. I don't want to stir up controversy in any capacity. But I was visiting a country that had a more, what's the word? I don't want to say tyrannical government, but more of a strict government than we might find in the United States. And I've traveled a lot, so that's pretty broad. And I was going to a country that had a lot less restrictions on it. And I'm sitting on the bus, and I'm kind of writing some stuff down in a journal I had at the time or something, just to kind of keep track of my experiences. And the bus is stopping and going a lot, and you're near the border, but I don't know exactly where or when. But I'm just kind of looking around, and I'm like, I wonder, if we're near the border, how much longer it's going to be until we pass. And then I go back down, and I'm writing some stuff in my notebook. And then all of a sudden, I just felt this huge internal pressure just lifting off of me. Like it was like everything inside was like compressed in me that whole like time, and it just like all released and let off. And I looked up, and then I saw a sign saying that we had just crossed the border. And I'm like, okay, that's weird. Like I was thinking about if we had crossed the border, but I didn't know. Like I had no way. I did not know that we had crossed the border until I felt that, and I'm like, we are across the border. And then I looked over and I saw the sign. And yeah, so that wasn't quite a paranormal experience, but it was definitely something very interesting where I can almost like, you know, in Christian terms, you can feel like the more spiritual oppression of one country in translation to another country. And it was very extreme, and I've never felt anything that extreme, at least stateside, in terms of like, you know, my travels and experiences over here.
I mean, you have like haunted houses and stuff. People say that they get bad energy if they walk into a room. I mean, if it's on such a grand scale that it's the entire government, then it's like it would be applied to the whole area. Yeah,
it's almost like the government had quote unquote bad energy. Yeah, and then as soon as we left, it's like, oh, I feel like relief. Like all of this pressure is off of me that I didn't even realize was there when we crossed over. So it was just an interesting anecdote, if you will. Yeah. Any thoughts on that you want to interject?
No, those were my thoughts. It's just bad energy stuff.
Yeah.
And it's, I guess it's just a preface for all of this, but like it's tricky memories because sometimes it might be like you might remember one thing, but it could be that something influenced you along the way that changed that memory somehow.
That's true. I'm usually pretty good with my memories. Getting nerd psychology mode here, my Myers-Briggs type, it's either ESFJ or ISFJ, but anyway, either way, introverted sensing is one of the key components. Those of you that are psychology nerds know exactly what I'm talking about. Introverted sensing is highly correlated to like memory. So memory is of a huge emphasis to my specific personality type. So I'm not going to say I have a perfect memory.
Yeah,
I don't.
I'm just saying like a preface, like
you can ask my wife. She knows that I have a lot better memory than she does. But yes, anyway. So I've got two more things. One was another friend of mine. This friend claimed to me, and they had no reason to really like make it up either. It was kind of something almost more of an embarrassment that they kind of knew to some degree I would disapprove because I was a lot more strict on my, I still am strict on my Christian principles, but I was a lot more strict on my Christian principles at that point. But this friend told me that they had an experience, a reoccurring experience, where a blue man would come and sit in their room and be able to tell them, no, seriously, like tell them things about the future.
Huh.
Like what would happen?
Did they come true?
I think generally, yeah, because this friend liked to depend on talking to this creature to know what was going to happen and be able to prepare for it. So now whether you want to say that's a manifestation of just the subconscious, predicting things, or whether it's like a dreamlike state, like lucid dreaming, or whether that's, flat out the occult, that's for you as the listener to decide what you think that is. I have my opinions on it, though, of course. What do you think, Trace?
I feel like I've vaguely heard of some, like a blue man in a spiritual sense, but I don't know for sure, so I'm going to not comment on it.
Fair enough.
But that's weird. I'd be interested to see, hear what exactly was said and, how it came to fruition.
Right. All right, last experience for me, Trace. Then you had some things you wanted to talk about. All right. My last experience, I'll share a little bit more location on this one because this was just involving me and only me. This was when I was at Liberty University, so I was a college student at the time. This was during my junior year. At this point, I had just come through a difficult time in my life. The summer before, I think it was early spring semester. The summer before had been a very difficult summer. I had some personal stuff that I was going through. And I started to struggle with my faith a lot. I started to feel like, God really was. This is when I really started asking questions about my faith. The first time I really delved in and actually took a step back from my faith as a Christian to see what all was out there. And it was a Sunday, and I decided to, because I was struggling with my faith, I didn't go to church. That stuck out to me. So it's like I decided not to go to church, but I was tired. I was out taking a lot of difficult classes that year. So I laid down and decided to take a nap. And I had like a bunk bed where I was on top, and I strung up a sheet on the left side of me. So I had like a sheet hanging up, so I had like total privacy. The only way anyone could see in was at the foot of the bed. To the right.
I like where this is going.
I think you will like where this is going. This is a very different experience than a lot of paranormals.
Okay.
So to the right foot of the bed, the right side was the top, because I'm on a bunk bed, remember, is the top of the window on our second story building. And everything else, like, I'm in the corner. So like it's just wall. So I go to sleep, and this is the first time I think I've ever had an experience like this, where I'm laying in bed, but I'm dreaming about laying in bed. Like I'm actually exactly where I'm laying, and I'm like there in the dream, but I don't realize it's a dream at the time. So I'm laying there, because it took a couple minutes to fall asleep. So like once I fall asleep, I kind of pop into this vision, if you will, and I'm sitting there, and there's this huge bright light outside that window to my right. Like it's almost like someone's shining an LED like 2 inches away, like the brightest LED imaginable. But it's like permeating through the walls too. Like it's permeating into the room almost in a sense. So it's not like the rest of the room is dark. Everything is really bright around me. And then the wind is whipping through the window. The blinds were down and they're flapping. And, it's like this really, really powerful physical event going on all around me. And I'm just laying there, and I feel this most amazing, fulfilling, contenting presence that I've ever felt in my life. I feel that. Like, I wish I could put it into words, but like, it was, I really can't describe it. Like it was just such an overwhelming experience that I've actually, since then, when I go through other like difficult stuff, I've been able to think about that experience and remember what that feels like and go back and like focus on that to kind of detect it around me again. But it was a presence, and it wasn't a bad presence. It was a very, very good, welcoming, loving, accepting presence. Mm-hmm. And I immediately connected two and two because I was struggling with my faith at the time, but I'm still like, I just kind of knew, I'm like, this has to be God, right? Like this has to be what God feels like. And so I asked in like this dream vision that I was having, I'm like, God, is that you? Second, I asked that, I woke up. There's no bright light outside. The blinds were not flapping. I think the window was closed even at this point, because I think it was still a little bit cold outside. Nothing. Like everything just went back to normal. And I'm just like, what the crap did I expect? At first I kind of downplayed it. I'm like, it was just a dream, And I'm like, no, I don't have dreams like that. Like I don't dream that way. Like whenever I dream, I'm doing something, I'm very far removed. I don't dream that I'm laying exactly where I'm laying. Like I don't have those kind of dreams. So, again, it's you have to decide for yourself. One, if you even believe I'm telling the truth. I know I am. I'm recounting honest, true stories that I've experienced. You have to decide for yourself if you want to believe them. And then two, you have to figure out what you think they are. But to me, I'm fully convinced that was God that revealed himself to me in some kind of vision, which is pretty wild.
I think you were abducted by aliens. No, but that's... I mean, I have no idea what to really say to that. But, I
think you had some experiences you were wanting to share, unless you wanted to interject something there.
No, I'm still just trying to think of a good response for LED dream.
I mean, yeah, it's pretty much what it was.
Yeah, no, I don't know. That's crazy.
Yeah.
I mean,
as we were talking here, I realized I actually had a couple more, but I'm going to put a pause in that and kick it over to you because I've been talking all about myself and I want to hear some about you.
Well, I mean, we can keep going on your side. I got feel like a nice little half and half would be nice.
I mean, we're about halfway through the episode, and we're like right at about 30 minutes without any of the sound stuff in.
Well, okay. Should we take a break here before you get started on mine?
We should take a break. Please hear this word from our sponsor, who I have no clue who it is. It's probably going to be gambling, which I do not endorse in any way, shape, or form. But I have zero control over that. That's Spreaker's decision. All right, anyway, here you go, musers. And we are back. We hope you didn't toss the dice and throw away all of your money at the casino after that short ad break. Knowing that I tried to play a joke off of it, it's probably not going to be a gambling ad now. It's probably going to be something for life.
Like 5 years in the future, it'll be.
Yeah. I don't know if they change or update the ads or not. I'm not sure on that, actually.
Pretty sure they do.
Yeah,
Cause
but I can upload from Spreaker directly to YouTube. So how do they go in and edit that? Because then they have to edit the whole YouTube video. I don't know. I don't know how all that works. Anyway.
But I don't know. I know I've listened to podcasts before where it's clear that it's updated ads.
I'm going to be mad if they play political ads during our stuff when we are an apolitical show.
Yeah.
If you hear any political ads, we do not endorse it in any way, shape, or form. Pro or anti. We're just apolitical.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway. Trace, what do you have for us? Because you have some topics.
I do.
And then I'll finish it out with some more experiences.
So, I haven't had any prophetic dreams. I've had quite a bit of deja vu in the past, but I feel like that's pretty common. But this one time, I remember I was sitting on a chair right beside the window, and I remember getting deja vu, but I was like, wait a second.
I've been here before.
Well, yeah. Well, okay.
It's like deja vu. We've been here before.
No, but I remember thinking okay, deja vu, cool. But there was an extra part. And I was like, I haven't done this yet. It's okay, what if I don't do it?
Yeah.
And I sit for a couple of seconds thinking okay, don't pick up this thing. Don't pick up this thing. But then something happens and then I pick up the thing anyway. So it's okay, weird.
That's every classical mythology story where the character tries to avoid his destiny that's prophesied, and they fulfill the prophecy somehow anyway.
But I mean, it could just be because I was decently young in that memory too. So it could just be I'm faking the memory, like I was saying before.
That's fair.
But it was still crazy because I remember thinking okay, I remember doing this thing in this exact moment. I'm going to actively try to not do this thing.
Right.
But I can't even remember what happened that I picked it up. I probably just got bored and picked it up anyway because ADHD.
Yeah, probably. Constantly fidgeting with toys during my episode. I'm going to start fidgeting with stuff while you do your talk.
And dude, I don't care. Fidget all you want.
Just throw things at you through this pop filter.
But going in line with my younger experiences, I was telling you about this on the Mothman trip, but I remember having a sleep paralysis experience.
Okay.
Nothing I would say super paranormal. I didn't see a shadow person beside my bed or anything, but I remember waking up and I couldn't breathe, which I know is common in sleep paralysis. It's you just can't breathe, but I could still move. And I remember going over to my parents' room and trying to wake them up and try and speak, but I couldn't speak and I couldn't breathe, and that's pretty much it. Nothing really came out of that. Another experience I had is I go every year, every summer I go camping with my mom's side of the family and pretty off the grid. I'm not gonna say where.
Don't say where unless you want some of the Quad force to show up and troll you.
It's already busy enough and harder to get into. We don't need more people to try and compete with. But pretty off the grid, and I was kind of scared of the dark as a child. This is more of a funny story. But
you remember the snipe?
Oh my gosh! we have to end the episode on that.
I got to tell a cryptid fact about snipe.
Yeah, we're gonna end the episode on that. Oh man, Also, there's a werewolf story that you told too about something to do with apples.
Oh, that was a serial killer story.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I know that one too. Yeah, Trace, for those of you, our listeners have no clue. We did Trail Life together, which is like Boy Scouts.
Christian Boy Scouts,
yes.
yeah.
And I was, well, I still am like 6 years older than you. So I was like one of the group lead, basically. And you were like one of the young kids in the group. And I would just like tell these like stories to traumatize like the kids. You got dropped. They weren't really that bad. You'll be able to judge.
For me, it was. I was scared.
It wasn't like anything. Yeah.
Sorry, I showed Josiah something. We're gonna end the episode on that.
You want me to tell that story?
No, keep that as a surprise. But yes, that
okay.
We definitely have to end on.
We'll tell the snipe story and then we'll tell that one. And then
yeah.
That'll be. I'll do the creature facts then.
Okay.
All right. Anyway, your last experience. I'm sorry, we kind of got derailed by the snipe jumping in with his razor beak.
So anyway, it's pretty off the grid. By this point, I'm pretty familiar with the area, so like I could walk around pretty confidently between cabins and stuff. But I remember walking by myself, like I was hanging out with my cousins or something. Was going back to the cabin and go to bed, and I remember walking around. It's like pitch black there. There's no lights. I'm used to it now, and like. It's
when you go stargazing there, it sounds like a really awesome place to see the stars.
Yes,
dude,
it's so nice there.
Map out like the Big Dipper, Little Dipper, Polaris. Start picking out like the figures and stuff in the sky. Like that'd be pretty cool.
Yeah.
When you do.
I saw the ISS there.
Oh, dude, and I'm getting a new drone too, and it has adjustable. What's the word? I'm not gonna be able to think of it now that I'm on the air. But it's got like an adjustable like lens where you can control like the aperture of light of what comes in. So it's supposed to be really good for like night photography.
Yeah,
I wonder
cool,
how good it would be for something like that. And I could show like the M Quad followers if it's good.
Yeah, I can get which is like an iPhone camera. I can get like faint Milky Way.
Oh, I'm sure if you can get it with that. I'm sure I could get it with the drone. Then that's awesome.
Anyway,
sorry, I keep derailing you. That's my bad. We take the derivatives all the time here.
Yeah, walking around late at night, and I see because there's like bathrooms there with lights outside, so you can like easily find them. But I remember seeing like a dark silhouette walking towards me, and the entire time I was thinking like, "Oh man, it's like a vampire or something. Like this thing is gonna get me." And no, it was just some lady walking around. That's all it was. Anyway, more of a serious note here. We're pretty close to Gettysburg. So I've been on a ghost tour there. I'll save that. I have like 3 stories all to do with Gettysburg. First one, my dad would always tell me this story about he was out on the battlefield one night, and with my aunt, and they set up like a recorder on a statue somewhere. And they just kind of walked off, went to do other things, and they remember. I need to ask my aunt about this to see if she tells me the same thing, because I don't know. My dad likes to tell stories a lot, but he told me that they were off in the distance and they saw like soldiers walking around. They're like. Reenactors or something, but they said they were at like late at night or something. I think. So it's like that's weird that they're out this late at night. And I think they said that they saw like a lantern too, but when they went back to get the recorder, they actually heard like people talking, and I might be making this up, but I think they heard like drums and stuff on it, like marching and stuff on it. So that's pretty interesting. I've been to, there's one location in Gettysburg called Devil's Rocks. Am I getting that right?
Devil's Den,
that's it. And we just went out there. It's kind of like half a joke. We went out with like a spirit box, and you know what a spirit box is?
No.
Okay, so it's that thing that it's constantly cycling through radio waves, It's a thing
okay.
that's like that thing.
Okay.
Do you know what I'm talking about?
No, but I can kind of visualize it from what you're describing, so I'm good. You can keep going.
So it's supposed to pick up, because ghosts can like speak through electromagnetic waves, whatever. I'm sure there's a better explanation for it, but supposedly this thing cycling through all the radio frequencies is supposed to kind of pick up these interferences of the ghosts speaking.
I've looked into the electromagnetic frequency to be able to talk about that for our next episode, talking about Skinwalker Ranch.
Okay.
So we can come back to talking about this a little bit as we talk about all that. But
Okay.
yeah, continue.
Well, so we were out there and we were reading like ghost stories just to kind of like set the mood, just have some fun. And I remember it picked up some things. Most of it was indecipherable, but the one thing, it was clear as day. It was just like Obamacare. And it was like, oh, okay, they like Obamacare, cool.
All right. I mean, that's what happens when you have a handheld radio that cycles through different frequencies. Is you're going to pick up random bandwidths.
Yeah.
And think it's a ghost talking to you, but really it's an ad for gambling.
But spirit boxes, I don't know. It was just all kind of like jumbles, and like you, if you really really wanted to, you could say like, oh yeah, I think it said this, and then of course everyone else would say, oh yeah, I heard that too. And
It's like that one thing where like they have that recording of jarbled words, and then they put like the
subtitle,
phrase, and it determines what you hear. Whatever you're reading is what
and
you
then
hear.
they repeat it over
Yeah.
and over and slow it down, and it's like,
Yeah.
well, it has to be that.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah. So then, a couple years later, this is a little bit more recent, I would say. But I did a ghost tour in Gettysburg too, and you know, for what it was a cool experience. I can't remember which building it was. I wish I could, because it was still an interesting experience overall.
Was it the one where that civilian was killed? 'Cause
I have no
that's probably
idea.
that's a big one. I forget what her name was, but it was like this woman baking bread.
No, it wasn't that.
It wasn't her. Okay.
No.
I don't
This
know.
was some like house kind of not in town directly, but anyway, we started down in the basement, and they had one of those sensor things that like if stuff gets near it, like a motion detector, if stuff gets near it, then it'll go off.
right.
And it was like setting off in this far corner of the room. No one was near it, and it would start going off. It was like,
That'd be
okay,
so
that's kind of weird.
easy to fake, though. I feel like, especially for a place designated to ghost tours.
Yeah. I mean, I'm take all of this with a grain of salt. This is the only thing
Right.
that really stuck out to me, is like, okay,
Yeah.
I could kind of see something there.
Yeah.
But you know, it was kind of weird in general. We used dowsing rods, and they gave like a bunch of them out to other people, and you know, of course, is like ask a question, cross them if yes, put them apart if no. And the dowsing rods, every person that held them didn't work, except for the tour lady, and she was just so stupid, really. But then she would go around, take the dowsing rods, ask the question again, and then it would work.
Oh,
It's
yeah,
like,
it only
what?
works when she's holding it, of
Well,
course.
that doesn't prove anything.
Yeah.
And then if you like really looked closely, you could see like slight movements. Not like all the time, but like probably half the time you could see that she was clearly moving her hand slightly.
Oh,
It was
okay.
like, okay,
Yeah.
that's like, I get it. It's a business. It's a show.
Yeah, but that's the thing
But-
is like when you try to monetize that stuff or you draw attention to it, it's similar with like Skinwalker Ranch when you dive into it. When they started doing research at first, everything went quiet.
Yeah. It's
Where
like
it's
the
like
more
the-
observers you have, the less likely it's about to show
Exactly.
up.
Especially like when you introduce video cameras and stuff. So
They also used, I keep forgetting the name of it, but it's the lines. It's supposed to like map out the body. We talked about this.
oh yeah, the video game thing or whatever.
Yeah, so it's
The
basically
IR
like
projection.
it's like an Xbox Kinect, which like tracks movements.
Right. Yeah.
There's plenty of videos and stuff about just like a stick man just like, and that's the ghost. But they showed this too, and it had no consistency to it. It looked like it was just doing a bunch of poses. Like it would do like it looked like it was like dancing around, and it would switch from like laying down in like the Ian Malcolm pose from Jurassic Park. You know what I mean? It would start from that, and then it would get up, and it looked like it was like doing like a little jump for joy or something. And it's just like, okay, I'm not.
Yeah.
I wish I could buy into that, but it's like, I mean, I buy into that technology in general, but like that experience in particular.
It sounds like a monetized scam.
Yeah, it was still cool to learn about the history and stuff, and they were saying about like how the attic is off limits because it's super ghosty. And
the attic is off limits because that's where the central control system is to fake all the ghost experiences.
I can't remember.
Do not look behind at the man behind the curtain.
But yeah, it's not really a super cool experience like yours. Like I know we were talking about before, like, man, I need to catch up. I need to go like sit in a fairy ring in the woods or something and get some kind of story.
Need to be careful with that though, because then you might go missing 411. Speaking of which, our audience is about to go missing 411 right about now. We return to you, storming Trace's favorite campsite, crowding him out on a warm summer's eve, able to gaze at the stars and ponder life and the meaning of the universe, but mainly to irritate Trace. That being said, Trace, you have one more experience for us.
Yes. So in my old apartment, it was like winter of like a couple years ago. I can't remember so a couple years ago, in my apartment that I had, I was with my girlfriend just hanging around. We were about to leave somewhere, and I had a roommate at the time, and we were just sitting out in we were standing in the hall, like about to go, or like in my room doorway or something, and I heard like distinctly like someone walking up the stairs or like down the stairs or something, and I look over. It's like, okay, I knew my roommate was at work. I was like, okay, no one's there, and I like thought I heard for sure again like something bump in the attic upstairs, and it sounded 100% like someone was up there moving stuff around. And I was like,
I mean, did you have like the heat on or something in certain rooms where maybe it was like fluctuations in the wood? Because I know this house will creak sometimes.
No, I mean, at that point I was living in there for like a year, like almost a year at that point, and like I knew what the house sounded like whenever the heat kicked on.
Okay, so it was an abnormal experience.
Yeah, it's like
very
the attic, the heat kind of sucked in that house in general. So like the attic was pretty much untouched by that kind of stuff.
Okay.
But it sounded like someone was like 100% sounded like someone was walking up or down the stairs. Like it was footsteps. And it sounded like my roommate was like a bigger guy, so like it sounded like him walking up the footsteps, like kind of heavy footsteps walking up or down the steps, and I was like, okay, that's weird. And like my girlfriend was there, she heard all of it, too, and we were both like, okay, let's leave now.
Yeah, understandable.
And yeah, it was just, and we even like, it was a festival in town, and so her dad was in town in the festival, so we were like, hey, can you like come back with us, because like I want to check this out to see if anything's been disturbed, or like it felt like someone was up in the attic. And this is like the first time this has ever happened. It's kind of an old creepy house too,
right?
There's definitely been times where like standing in the hall, it's like this feels uncomfortable, but you know, it's just old dark house. So could 100% just be that. The basement was creepy. Did not like being down there.
Yeah,
much.
I think I went down there one time. It was really creepy. It was like a dingy 1800s kind of basement.
Yeah, there was a weird like dark corner with some mystery jug of weird fluid in it.
Maybe Gollum or the Blue Man were sitting next to it too, and you never know.
Maybe. But yeah, that's the only like real experience that I've had that it's like that was weird. And like we went up into the attic, nothing looked moved. We didn't really have much up there anyway. But it was like 100% that was someone walking on the stairs is what it sounded like. It's like there's like it was like a half house too. So you could say that it's just the people walking up the stairs on the other side, but like
it was too distinct.
I knew the sound of them walking up the stairs. Like it was still super deafened. You could still barely like honestly, I don't think I've ever heard them walk up the stairs. But this was like what I've heard every day from people walking up the stairs.
Right. Yeah. So it sounded very much like it was on your side.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah. It's like I was 100% expecting to turn around and see my roommate walking up, but then there's just no one there. It's like, okay.
Yeah. And it's hard to discount things like that. You know, I mean, well, you can very easily as an outside listener to be like, oh, we're just making this up for a thrill on MQuad Musings because we need a filler episode. Well, no, we really don't.
We have so much of a backlog to do.
I have like 2 years worth of content scheduled, and I have plenty more filler episodes prepped, some of which we're going to do soon. But this really isn't a filler episode. It's just more, hey, this is an idea. We need to get ahead on episodes anyway, so let's just knock this out real quick during the week. This is still the week right after our Mothman Festival, so we just recorded the Mothman Festival episode on Monday. So. But yeah, no, some interesting experiences. Anything else you want to add on that?
No, it's just, I just kind of wish I had more experiences like that.
So I'm going to circle back to some other things I've had happen because I did remember a few other things as we were talking here. And then we're going to hit Snipe, and then we're going to talk about Creature Fact, which I'm going to do. Sound good to you, Trace?
100%.
All right, so this will be a little bit more rapid fire. When I was younger, I actually had prophetic dreams, like dreams of things, and they would happen. So first one I'm going to say, it involves politics, but this is not a political statement from me in any way, shape, or form. But this is the first time it happened. It was around is it the 2008 elections when Obama was running, I think?
I don't know.
I had a dream that Obama won the election before he won the election. Like I dreamt, you know, those like maps that you can see where like the states turn like certain colors.
Yeah.
Like I had a dream and like almost everything was blue. I don't know if it correlated exactly to what actually like it was because I didn't remember the dream in that much detail, but it was predominantly blue to indicate to me. It very clearly communicated the message to me that he won he was going to win the election, and then he did. So that was the first one. The second one, it's kind of a funny. All of these are funny. They're like very small nuances of things that didn't really matter much to like my life as a whole, but they mattered to me intrinsically, if that makes sense. Well, maybe not the election because I wasn't that invested in the election as like a 10-year-old kid. However old I was, like 9-year-old kid. I didn't really care a ton. So the second one was World of Warplanes related.
Okay.
So this is, I was playing World of Tanks a lot, and I loved that game. And World of Warplanes was in the like alpha beta testing phase, and I really wanted to be a beta tester. And so I submitted an application to be a beta tester. And after like, I don't know, a couple weeks maybe or something like that, I had a dream that I went down to my computer and I opened up my computer and I had an email saying I'd been accepted. And no joke, that morning I woke up and I went down to my computer and I had an email. So I was indeed a beta tester for World of Warplanes. I think I still have the email in my inbox somewhere.
Oh my gosh.
Well,
is that important to you, huh?
No, it's just I don't ever go through and delete like all my emails. Okay. Last one was I had a crush on this girl when I was like in middle school. And my wife will probably be mad at me for admitting I had a crush on another. No, she's not like that. But I had a crush on this one girl, and it was a very specific scene where like her and I had met her like on the basketball team I had played with, and it was a specific scene where her and I were like on a basketball court, and I accidentally knocked her over and I helped her up. Like I gave her my hand and she grabbed my hand and I helped like pull her up on her feet again. And it was a very specific like thing. I didn't think anything of it. Like I totally forgot about it. And then at one point, like I set up like this thing where like I was playing with like her and several other friends. We're all playing basketball together on the court. And sure enough, exactly where that happened in the dream, I accidentally knocked her over and I helped her back up. And I didn't even remember it until I was like doing it. And it was like deja vu. And then I was like, wait, this is deja vu because I dreamt this. Like I remembered the source of it. It wasn't just like an obscure deja vu.
I mean, yeah, but I've also had a lot of deja vus, and I feel like a lot of other people have also had deja vus. It's like, it feels like I dreamt this before.
But like I specifically remembered the dream. Like it wasn't like because I've had that too, where I'll be at work or something and be like, I think this is like deja vu, but I can't remember the specific dream. The second it happened, I remembered like the specific dream. Like it was very pronounced in my mind.
Okay.
And I actually got to the point where I like started getting scared by all of this, and like I actually like prayed to God. I'm like, God, can you like not let me have any more prophetic dreams? And I didn't have any sense, but I'll still have like weird deja vu things. But anyway, that concludes my weird experiences. So you as the audience, we're not here to push any agenda on you at M.Musings. But it's for you to decide, abnormal or paranormal. We just want to share our experiences with you. I will also tease, I have one friend that had several different experiences with something that might have been Bigfoot that were more pronounced than what I experienced. I just thought of this as we're on the air here. I'm going to shoot him a message after this, and I'm going to see if I can get him to come on the show and tell his stories. Because I actually thought Bigfoot was just a total hoax and like fake until he started telling me these stories. And he lives like in like the south central eastern region of the States, like in the Appalachian Mountains, like right where a lot of these hot spots like tend to be with Bigfoot. Like he lives near like the Smoky Mountain, or he used to at least live near the Smoky Mountain like National Forest, which is supposed to be like a hot spot for like Bigfoot stuff. So I don't know, man. I didn't believe in Bigfoot until he told me some of his stories, and I'm like, okay, I believe in Bigfoot now. Because again, he's not the type that like bullcraps it.
Yeah.
Like that's the thing is like all of these like friends that I've had tell me different things. Like they'll tell me things like that they won't tell other people, more or less in confidence. That's why I'm keeping them anonymous, because I'm not breaking confidentiality and sharing that.
Yeah.
But they'll tell me these things like more or less in confidence, often with the mentality that like, hey, I might be judged for this because I know Josiah's stance on certain things like this. And they'll tell me anyway, and they have no reason to make it up. They're not the type to tell tall tales. Like I've known like the friends that I've all referenced, I either knew them for like a year plus or like 3, 5, 7 years. And they would tell me these things. And it's like, I knew them well enough at that point to be like, yeah, they're not the type to tell me tall tales. So you have to do with it as you will. And maybe some of you out there have had your own experiences. If you are interested in us evaluating them and potentially discussing them on the show, you can always email us at m.quad.musings@gmail.com. That being said, Trace, unless you have anything else you're wanting to add, I think I'm going to close out the show here with our duo creature fact.
Okay, I just now thought of something else as well. So my cousin told a story about he was somewhat close with his grandparents, but not really, because they're like he's around my age, but his grandparents are my great grandparents pretty much. So they're like pretty old. They were pretty old by the time we were born. But he always, I mean, this was like a recent story I like overheard him say. But he said that he never like would see blue jays around, but when grandfather died, he would see blue jays, but only one. And then when the grandmother died, he would see 2 blue jays all the time. And like he's never seen 2 blue jays. So I know that's also a common thing about like people that die, they kind of, I don't know, like animals show up. Like ladybugs are a big one, butterflies
Cardinals are another
big
one. I don't know if you knew that one or not. That was one recently that I had learned, is that like if like you see a cardinal, it's supposed to be a loved one that's like visiting you. I don't know if I believe that personally, but I know some people do.
Some of these animals, they seem to have a tune in to the spiritual world sometimes.
They do. I mean,
So-
why do you think cats just get up and jump at like random like things and there's nothing there?
Yeah. If your cat's staring at the wall, it's 100% a demon.
Or astral projecting into the spiritual realm. That being said, we're going to take one last ad break here, and then we're going to come back and finish out the show.
Boo! We're back.
I couldn't think of anything, so I just
Yeah.
I asked Trace, I'm like, you have any ideas? And he's just like, that. And I'm like, do it. Go. So we have returned, Musings on Mysteries in the Mythical Matrix. As we close out this show, episode, I don't even know what episode number this is, 22-ish?
One of them.
Yeah. Wait, hang on. I got to find this out now because it's going to irritate me.
You know, I just thought if some people like skip through the ads, that boo is not going to be very effective. Because they skip, because that's what
They might
I do
skip
is
past the
I
boo.
skip through the ads and then I hear like, okay, they're talking now, and then I'll rewind back.
I've done that before a couple of times as well.
Yeah.
Episode 23.
Okay.
So this is episode 23. I'm using some mysteries in the Mythical Matrix. We've been podcasting for almost 5 months now. 4.5 months. It's been a good 4.5 months, not going to lie.
Yeah.
That 1 week where we had to batch record like 5 episodes though.
Oh my god.
That was too much. Especially, and that was the quantum episode one too. That might be part of the reason why you hate quantum episodes. That being said, so it's going to be dual creature fact here. Number one, I've got to explain the snipe because that got referenced earlier.
Yeah.
So we were out camping.
Well, hold on. I want to preface this. Imagine this in the mind of like a scared 12-year-old in the middle of the woods
at night.
at night.
And you hear weird noises in the woods.
Yep.
People are going to think I'm such a bully. I was like 17 at the time, so I was very much like into picking on like not mean, but like I would tell stories to scare you sometimes, and it was good.
That was effective.
It was effective. But yeah, so I basically, the classic story of like telling kids like about snipe that you kind of see like an up to get rid of the kids. I did that, but I made the snipe scary about having like a razor sharp beak. And like I have a scar on my chest from like when a cat scratched me. And I was like, yeah, this is from when the snipe like tried to attack me and I grabbed onto its beak and I kept it from like, ripping my flesh open and all of these things. I really hyped it up to like them being like stalking us in the woods and them being all over the world. And I had Trace crying, and your dad had to come over and like be like, "Hey, they're fake stories. It's okay." Oh man, it was a good time. I feel like I kind of summed that up pretty well. It was pretty short.
No, that's pretty much exactly what happened.
Yeah,
You're telling
so.
scary stories of a killer turkey, and that they were out to get me.
That had like thermal vision or whatever,
Yeah,
and all
it
these
was-
things. It was a good time. I kind of made my own cryptid there. If your dad hadn't corrected me, it probably would have been a cryptid in your mind until this day.
100%.
Then you're gonna wonder how much of these cryptids are just tall tales told by parents or like teenagers to children to terrorize them just because I definitely did that to you. All right, so this one's going to be more of a story because this has been a story episode. This was a specific request from Trace. He actually asked me to take over the creature fact
This
for
story
this
is
one.
stuck in my mind ever since you've told it to me.
This is one I got from Boy Scouts years ago, so I don't know if this is. I can't imagine this is copyrighted. But I'm going to tell it best I remember because it's been ingrained in my mind for decades. The story of the purple gorilla. So, one time, this is out and this is a fictitious story. I'm going to preface this. This is not me claiming.
Man,
this
you
is
got to set the preface of like, imagine you're around a campfire right now.
Okay. All right. Well, you set the stage then, and then I'll tell the story.
Okay. So we're in the middle of the woods. It's pitch black outside. You can hear all kinds of crickets and stuff around you. You can hear owls hooting in the distance. The light of the fire is just touching right outside, like just far enough that you can just see like a couple trees, and the silhouette of the trees in the skyline. And,
You can feel the cool, brief reprieve of a breeze coming to tuck you closer to the fire at the end of a warm summer's day.
yeah.
Should I keep going, or do you want to set the stage more?
No, I feel like that sets a pretty good stage for the atmosphere
Okay.
that the story was originally told.
You can see remnants of the fire trickling off into the sky like fireflies slowly disintegrating into the atmosphere. And as you gaze up and you can see twinkling jewels looking down upon you and smiling as you're about to embark on this very adventurous story. So, that being said, the purple gorilla. So there was this man named John who was out traveling Midwest, out in Montana direction, if you will. And he's got a nice pickup truck, but he starts having some engine problems. His radiator springs a leak, and it empties out onto the road, so he can't cool his engine. So he's stuck, and he looks around, and he sees there's a house not too far away, about like half a mile. So he walks the distance, knocks on the door. It's a farmhouse, and a gruff hillbilly-looking type answers the door, introduces himself as Farmer Bob, who served in Vietnam. And John explains to Bob, he's like, hey, my car broke down, my truck broke down, the radiator fluid spilled everywhere. Can you help me out? I can't get cell service out here. Could you call a tow or something? And Farmer Bob's like, oh, your radiator? Oh, I have to fix those all the time on my tractors. I got a good quick fix for that. Bring your truck in. I have like a little hitch. We'll hitch it to we'll hitch it to my big tractor. We'll pull you in. It's getting late, so why don't you just stay for dinner, and I'll fix you up first thing tomorrow morning. And John's like, you know what? Sounds good. So they pull in his truck next to the barn, and John partakes in a delicious meal with Farmer Bob and his wife. And Farmer Bob says, the house is small, so hopefully you wouldn't mind sleeping in the barn. And John's like, you know what? This guy's been really nice to me. He's given me some good old country hospitality. He doesn't have enough room in his house. I can clearly see that. He's not being stingy here. He's offered to fix my radiator for free, giving me a meal for free, giving me a place to sleep. I can sleep in the barn one night. So Farmer Bob takes John out to the barn, and with some sheets and a pillow and everything, and sets him up with a little bunk bed. And he says, hey, before you go to bed, come on over here. Takes him over to one corner of the barn, kicks over a bunch of hay, revealing this trap door. And Farmer Bob looks John in the eyes, and his demeanor changes. And he says, whatever you do, do not open this door. No matter what you see, no matter what you hear, nothing. Do not, under any circumstances, open this door. John's like, all right, that's fair. Respect it. It's a little creepy now, but respect it. So, he's like, he's been nice to me. I got to abide by his wishes. So John tries to go to sleep. 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, 11, 12, 1, 1:30. John is tossing and turning, is plaguing his mind incessantly. What is under this hatch? All sorts of things are racing through his mind. He's like, am I sleeping on a burial ground of a serial killer? What is going on right now? So eventually, 2:30 rolls around, and John has just had enough. Despite Farmer Bob's warning, John goes over, and he pops open the hatch. And it's a dark chimney style with a ladder going down. It's like a dark vertical hallway chimney. And John starts descending the ladder into the darkness. And as he descends, he's about halfway down, give or take. He's not quite sure until this happens. Lights start clicking on. It's like automated lights, like when you walk into a really big room and the lights flick on automatically in sections progressing. That's what happens. And progresses down, and then he sees the floor. And it goes from being, cinder block type construction to the floor is like white sterile lab looking. And John's like, what the heck? So he goes down there, and he looks around, and it's just a square room, and there's a big door, automated door, electronic door, and it's got a hand scanner, like a fingerprint scanner, but for your whole hand. And he's like, what the heck? This doesn't make any sense. This dude's a hillbilly farmer. So he thinks for a minute, and he's really good with technology. So he figures out a way. He uses like some drywall, some powder up in the barn to, simulate a handprint. He knows the whole hacking kind of stuff. He does like the Ant-Man trick, if you will. he gets the handprint grease that's on there, and he gets in. This door opens, and then there's another door, another room, same size, another door. It's like a little hallway, and it's like this 2-foot thick glass that's all distorted, like looking like it's not broken, it's just distorted. You can't see through it. You know, like the privacy screen on your bathroom, but like erratic. And he's like, that's interesting. So he walks over to that, and these doors swing open, so he has to pull it. He pulls it open, swings one of these doors open, and the automated system takes over at that point, and the door swings open and locks back. And he looks inside, and there's yet another white square room, but this time there's no door. In fact, there's nothing in this room at all, except a cage, a very big cage. And inside of this big cage is a giant purple gorilla. That's right, you heard it here on Musings on Mysteries in the Mythical Matrix. And this story here, it's a purple gorilla. This purple gorilla is sitting in a meditative pose and sleeping. So John walks in, and he circles all around this gorilla several times. It's a massive gorilla. It's easily 10 feet tall. And he doesn't know what to make of it. He's like, that's it? Nothing here. It's just a gorilla. Like, I don't care about a gorilla. So he takes a couple steps out through this really thick glass door, and he stops. And he's like, you know what? I got to do it. So he goes back in and reaches his arm through the cage, and he just pokes the gorilla on the arm ever so gently. The gorilla's eyes snap open, and there is determined rage on its face as it begins to pound on the cage bars. John leaps back in terror, runs and scrambles out the door after he collects himself from the panic of his freeze state. And he pulls on this thick glass door and slams it shut just as the gorilla pries open the bars of the cage enough to crawl out. John is panicked. He staggers back. He sees a brace drop down to secure the glass doors, you know, like you would see in a castle or something. This locks the doors, and John breathes a sigh of relief as he realizes that his mistake might not have any serious consequences. He sees the gorilla try in vain to pull the door and push the door to get it to move, and it doesn't move. John smirks. He's like, take that, you beast, he says. But then the glass cracks as the gorilla punches it for the first time. The gorilla punches it for a second time. A small chunk lands at John's feet. John is sweating. He moves to the second door. Well, the first door, technically, but the second door in his escape. He activates the metal doors to seal the escape of this gorilla, and he starts rapidly climbing the ladder. But just as the doors close to the handprint door, the metal doors, a shard of glass goes flying through and smashes against the wall. And so John clearly knows that the gorilla got through the glass. John scrambles up, and he gets out of the escape hatch. And he looks down, and he can hear a faint metal thud. And then an explosion-like sound as the doors rocket off their hinges and smash into the lab wall. John is panicked. He sprints for his truck, keys in hand, jumps in, slams the door behind him, puts the keys in the ignition, tries to turn it over, but apparently there's a problem with the starter as well, because it doesn't start. It just sputters. John freezes. He gets that eerie feeling that he's being watched. He slowly turns his head to the left, and staring him in the eyes, not more than a foot from his face, is the giant purple gorilla, huffing and puffing with anger. He gazes into its deep, dark blue eyes, filled with fury and rage. John's life flashes before his eyes. He can feel the breath of the gorilla on his face, and he realizes he didn't even put up his window. His window was down from when the car died. The purple gorilla just stares at him for a minute and sits there, savoring its victory in its angered state. And then the purple gorilla picks up its arm, reaches its arm into the car through the window, sticks out one finger, pokes John on the shoulder, and says, "Tag, you're it." End of story.
Yeah. Now, imagine that through, like I said, imagine that through the mind of a 12-year-old in the woods. I'm pretty sure
You liked it.
I loved it. But I think this is also the same night as the snipe story.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah, it was probably after to help calm you down.
Probably. But yeah, I love that story.
Yeah.
It's a great twist at the end.
Yeah. I had to, really get into the method acting here, both being an actor and an author. I'm not going to say, I'll say the book, Home of the Shadikins. You can find it on Amazon. But I'm not going to say the movie because I've also been an actor in a movie. But yeah, I have a pretty diverse portfolio. That being said, thank you for tuning in with us tonight on Musings on Mysteries in the Mythical Matrix. If you've listened this far, you're clearly a fan, or at least an inquisitor of the podcast. So we would invite that you give us a like, a follow, a subscription, whatever the method of poison is to express your support for the podcast on whatever podcasting platform choice you use. You can get a hold of us at m.quad.musings@gmail.com. You can find us on social media at m.quad.musings on Instagram and TikTok. You can search Musings on Mysteries in the Mythical Matrix and find us on Facebook. We invite you to quantumly transcend time with us and send in your confessions, concessions, contentions, snide remarks, your complaints, your frustrations, whatever you have. Please don't send in your logical fallacies, though, because we will laugh at you in private and potentially on the show if you use logical fallacies. But yeah, that being said, whether you've been listening on the earth, above the earth, or below the earth, we thank you for tuning in on this abnormal or paranormal episode. And we sincerely hope from the bottom of our hearts that you have a wonderful yet slightly spooky evening.
Doodles.